Hello, listeners. Hi, my name is Madhavi, and I'm so happy to have you on UppTalk. You have come to the right place if you want to learn about IT and do really cool things with your hands. We are not just another IT company when I say UppTalk. Think of us as your learning partner dedicated to helping you reach your full potential. We have top notch hands on courses to help you build your business, whether you're new to technology or want to move up in your current job. Let's look around this as our first step towards learning.
Let's just start with this dynamic sender profile. And that's what we're talking. What's the dynamic sender profile is? In the sender profile, we have to mention the form name from email address, right? Let me go to let me deploy to tab. We have to mention the form name and form email address. Now what happens is, let's say we have only one business unit, but we have multiple brands for which we are sending the email, right? Maybe let's say Tata, right? Now under Tata, umbrella, we have lots of other brands. We have Tanishq, we have Titan, we have, TCA. Lots of brands are there under Tata, right? Let's say we have only one business unit for Tata and we have multiple brands and we are sending the email, but the form name should be different, right? For each brand, for if we are sending the email related to the Tanishq, then the form name should be Tanishq, right? And if we're sending ready to Titan, like sorry, Titan, then it should be Titan, right? What we can do, we can have a dynamic. Instead of creating multiple sender profiles, we can create only one sender profile, and then it could be dynamic. Based on what email message that we are sending, it will automatically pick up the relevant sender profile, relevant form name and form email address, and then the email will be sent. How does that happen? We will come to the admin tab first. Here I have already created one sender profile, which is dynamic sender profile. Here, what I have given is that I have given the name external key and the form name and form email. Form name you will give like this, a double percentage followed by form name and then double percentage signs. Now, if you remember about the personalization string that we have seen in the earlier, sessions. Personalization strings are what? We have two types of personalization string. One are the custom and then the one is standard. Let's say if we have a field in the data extension, let's say name, and then you want to print that. You want to print in the, for example, this one. Let me show you the content. If I want to display the name of the customer, what I will do, we have the name in our data extension as a field. I'll write double percentage signs and name and then followed by double percentage signs. What it will do, it will pick up the value from the data extension and will populate over here. It will display the name of the customer on the email message like test and journey builder demo like this, right? Similarly, what we can do, we can just configure this over here like from email, from address, and we have to have the same, name of the fields in our data extension. At the time of sending the email, it will basically pick up the form name value from the data extension and that will be used as your form name in the sender profile. This is what we need to do over here. When we have the form name from email, there could be a chance, let's say in a data extension, we don't have the value for these. We also have this option to mention the fallback email address that we have mentioned over here. In case we do not find any value, then use the fallback email address. We do these things and then, we just click on Save button. This is one thing that we need to do. Another part that we need to do is we need to come to a data extension. The data extension that we are using to send the email, here we have to create two fields. One is form name and form address. And then here we have to have the value right. Let's say these are the customers which relates to, let's say, Titan. And the form name would be different. Now we have some other records to whom we are sending the email, and that for them we want to use the, let's say, Tanishq as a form name that we can choose. When we come over here, there's the same data extension. Here we have the form name and form address values. The way that you retrieve the form name and form address value on the email message, like double percentage signs, followed by this, the same thing we have done in the sender profile. If I'll come over here and if I'll choose this dynamic sender profile, I'll be able to see this, a dynamic sender profile over here. When the email will be sent, it will basically pick up the form name and form address value from the date extension from the record that we have previewed. And this is the record that we are previewing. It will take from this record this form name and form email address, and it will send the email. And out for it is just that you provide the personalization string over here, and that value you have to fetch and then give that value dynamically to the sender profile. If there's no doubt, then we can move on to our remaining AMPers get functions. It is clear. Let's come here. We're going to talk about 4 functions over here. Now inserted data, upset data, update data, upset data, delete data. Here we can use the inline AMPscript as well, or we can also use a block AMPscript. Since we are only executing the single function, we can also do like this. When we copy from any text editor, we get, a different kind of quotation marks which is not supported by our marketing cloud. We have to change into these ones. Now insert data, like as the name says, we are going to insert the data where we are going to insert the data into the data extension. Like what all fields that what all values that we want to insert. That's something we need to specify over here. Inside it is the name of the function, the first argument. It will take the name of the data extension where we want to insert the data. What is the name of the data extension? It is your AMPscript demo rewrite. We'll copy the name from there. Let me go to the data extension. This one. I'll copy the name from here. And then we'll paste it over here. Now, what all fields that we want to insert? All the mandatory fields has to be inserted. On the only mandatory field that we have is customer ID. I'll keep it first. That is my customer ID. Now, feel like always, it will go into the pair column name, column value, column name, column value, right? This is the column name, comma, and then column value. What would be the column value that we want to write? Let's say 0 to 0. And all the other fields are nullable. These are optional fields. Whether we want to insert the value, that is fine. Also, we can skip it. But let's provide email address maybe. The field name is email. And let's say test print look at the right example come. That's something I want to do. Now let's say if you want to add any additional field value, what we can do? We can write first name and then value and then last name and then its value. It's the same way that we have done for customer ID and the email address. Now I think we are good. Let me just publish the changes. This error might occur sometimes because it is not able to run, render the AMPscript right on the preview. Here we can see something called 1, which is your success value that we have the record inserted. We'll come over here. As we can see, now that one record has been inserted into the state extension, and quickly we'll check the value. We'll come to the course. As we can see that we had not inserted the first name and last name, but we have got the email address and the customer ID right. This is how we can insert the value into the data extension. Now imagine you're working on the custom preference center page, and this custom preference center page allows the user, let's say to opt into the preferences, or maybe to subscribe to something, right? Generally, we have the smart capture form using which you can, capture the data from the user, right? But let's say you are creating your custom form. Once you create the custom form, whatever the value they will submit to the custom form, you have to save into the data extension, right? In that you can use this insert data function to insert the data into the data extension. Let's say we want to update some information. What do you want to update? Let's say we want to update the first name and last name. What I'll do? I'll write first name that I want to update. What would be the value? Let's say test 1. And I also want to update the last name. Let's say test list. This is good. What I want to do, I want to go to this data extension. I want to update a record, or we want to update one record where customer ad is equals to 0 and Trudy. And what we all want to update, like whatever we are writing, by looking at this code, I'm not able to understand that. You know how many column and value pairs should I use to find the record? Like, will it go like this? That update the record where customer ad is equal to 020, email is equal to this, first name is equal to this, and last name is equal to this. How many column and pair value should I use to find the record? And exactly how many column and value pairs? I'm really supposed to update, right? That's something which is not clear over here. For that, we have to pass one more parameter. Let's say I'm passing one. What is this one? One basically tells the system that you have to just, take one column and value pair into the consideration to find the record. Apart from that, any column and value pair has to be updated, respectively into the date extension. If I'll mention two, then these two column and value pairs like till here will be used to find the record, and only the subsequent column and value pairs will be used to update the record. If I'll use 3, then it will take 3 column and value pairs to find the record, and only last name will be updated. How many column and value pairs we actually need? We only need the customer ID to find the record, and we are not going to update the email address. I'm going to remove this. Now it's fine. We are using one column and value pair to find the record. This is how we are using. This is the date extension and everything looks good. We'll just publish the changes now. Rahul, I'm not exactly understanding why we will update a single record like this. Let's say you have this profile center page, right? SQL we can't update, right? Only answer? Imagine we are running this on the cloud page now. Generally, the customer, what they want is the custom profile center page. Now the customer will go to the custom profile center page and he wants to update, let's say, his preferences or maybe his first name or last name or email address. In that case, here you cannot write the SQL, right? You can only write the SQL in the SQL query activity. I mean, if you have built the cloud page and the customer wants to update something, then you will have to use this update data function only, right? Yes, sir. We have published the changes. Let me run this now. Now we'll come back over here. All these data extension related functions, all these CRU operation functions are generally used with this preference center page only. I mean, that is one of the popular thing in Marketing Cloud. Apart from that, there could be some other requirement from the client. But generally, the client, asks us to develop this custom preference center page where we need to perform all these operations. And the customer, let's say, have this link in the email message where customer can go and unsubscribe from the email. Or let's say they can update their information. They might want to update their information, or maybe they might want to opt into some preferences, or maybe they might want to delete the preferences, right? Something like that. Here we have updated the first name and the last name of the customer, right? Already we had this email address in the customer, right? Now one question here. If we have to do for the multiple customers, then how we'll do it? Through the CSV file. You're going to do it for multiple customers. That can I mean in what case, like in what scenarios you would be doing. I mean you can use SQL to update the data. But I mean if you talk about the preference center pages, it will be specific to a particular recollect. It will be specific to a particular customer. But let's say if you want to update, let's say here you want to mask the email address, right? You want to add this .invalid to all the email addresses, or maybe you want to have another column and in that you want to have some default value or something like that, right? In that case, you can use SQL for the bulk operation. but I mean this is generally used for a single record date. Next function that we're going to see is the absurd data. Absurd data is your function which can insert or update the data in the data extension. Let's say we have this page, web page where the user can, subscribe to marketing cloud communication. If he already has the record, then we are going to update the record. We are going to update the information. And if he is, let's say, registering for the first time, then we are going to create a new record in the database. Or let's say this is the survey page. Right now, the customer is entering the feedback. Now, if he has already submitted the survey, then we are going to, update the responses. And if this customer is submitting for the first time, then we have to create a new record, right? That's something we need to do. There, we are going to use this function that goes update the record if existing. If it doesn't exist, then insert a new record. This is the data extension. I mean the syntax will remain same. Here we have the name of the data extension. And then we are going to use the one column value pair to find the record, and the rest of the column and name and pairs will be used to update the record in case the record does not exist. Then what will happen? Then all the column and value pairs will be used to insert the record in the data extension. Let me just first it will try to find the record. If it doesn't find, then it will insert the record into the data extension. Let's say if I'll mention 0 to 21, it will not be able to find that record and it will insert the record. Let me just will publish the changes. This function, sometimes it takes time to actually work. It is giving us the success only, but here it is not adding the record. Sometimes it takes time to add the record, and now it is added. As we can see that we have to add the first name and last name and then the customer ID, which has been added over here. Right? Now the next function that we have is delete data. Delete data is going to delete the record. Now we don't need this one. We only need the column value in column, like column name and column value. And that would be required to find the record that needs to be deleted. Here we have the name of the data extension, and then we have the column name and column value that will be used. We need to delete this record where customer ID is equals to 0 to 1. It will just delete that. Let me just publish the changes now. And click on publish. Now I'll just run this page. We have got the success. Now I'll just refresh the data extension to see if the recorder has been deleted or not. It's not deleted yet. Let me refresh. We have 10 records. Actually, we are making a lot of changes to the cloud page and publishing it. That is why it is taking a bit of time for the changes to take effect and really start working. Let me publish it again and then we'll see. I think it's deleting it. I think it's deleting it. I think it is taking some time. Maybe we'll check later. It will delete by that time. Any doubt for? I think it is taking time today. What we have learned far about the AMPscript is we have seen the AMPscript basics like variable for loop, conditional statements, and everything. Mostly, you would be using the function. Mostly, it would be the data extension functions, only like how we can insert the data, update the data, how we can retrieve the data from the data extension. And also we have seen the result functions, some data formatting functions, right? This kind of function that we have seen in the AMP script. And now we're going to move on to our next programming language, that is SJS. Let's go to SJS now. One, favorite question of interviewer is that what is the difference between the AMPscript and SSJS? Because we have two programming languages in Marketing Cloud. You might be asked this question that Far we have learned about the AMPscript. That AMPscript is Salesforce proprietary language, right? It is developed by Salesforce and it will only turn in the internal marketing cloud, right? You will not run on any other device or any other platform. Now the LSJS is based on JavaScript like in a popular language, and it has different versions. One of the version is ECMAScript 3.0. Now, based on that, we have this SJS. Now, one thing that you should be very clear with, like any programming language in the world, is it's just the, library of functions. It is just collection of functions and nothing else. In AMPscript also, we have seen that, a lot of functions are there. Like in the entire world, we have lots of programming language like C, C++, Ruby, Perl, Java, JavaScript, AMPscript, a lot of other programming languages. Now, every programming languages has the basics like conditional statements for loop. Maybe the syntax would differ, right? Here we are using the for loop like this. Maybe the syntax might differ. But all of these programming languages have the same thing, for loop, conditional statements, variables, and things like that. And the other thing that you will find common across all the programming language is the function. Now, based on their function, it is decided that which programming language we are going to use. Let's say you want to write a program maybe for your washing machine, right? That would be a different programming language. Now you want to write a program, let's say to develop a calculator. you want to write a program to develop this Facebook, right? Now you want to write a program to develop WhatsApp, right? For each and everything, the programming language will differ. Now, how the programming language is different, different, or why we are using different programming language based on their functionality, based on what we want to achieve. Each programming language has to offer some of the functions, and based on what functionality that we want to perform, we choose the programming language. What Salesforce did that? It is called server-side JavaScript, right? We already have JavaScript, which is developed by someone else, and they have different versions. The Salesforce picked the AMPscript 3.0, which is one of the version of JavaScript, and added some of the more functions. And relabeled it or named it as SJS, just server-side JavaScript. JavaScript initially had a couple of functions, maybe in hundreds and thousands. And then SSJS added a few more functions to this and then named as SJS. That's something we are going to learn. Now, AMPscript is primarily used for email and web personalization. As we already have seen that if you want to personalize, email messages, maybe web, then we are going to use the AMPscript. Now, SJS is generally used to deal with the external data. That's something we will see. If we have the data stored, maybe the external server or maybe external website from where we want to retrieve the data. AMPscript does not support JSON. SJS supports. Are you aware about the JSON formatting? Or do you want me to cover that? I am not aware of it. Even I don't have it. What happens is whenever we want to store the data, right? Imagine we have a computer, right? In our computer, we are running lots of applications. We are running, maybe Google Chrome. We are running our different applications in our computer. Now, each and every program, each and every application that we run in our program, in our computer needs memory, right? We have different types of memory. We have hard disk. We have, a random access memory. We have ROM, right? We have different types of memory. Now what happens is that whenever, let's say, we are running this application, maybe let's say you're running a movie, right? In your laptop. Now, whenever we run any application, it needs some memory. And you must have seen, let's say, if you are running a very heavy application, it will start creating issues in your laptop, or it will take more time for the processing, right? Every application developer or any app developer wants to make sure that our application runs with very less memory. For example, imagine that you're shifting from one place to another, right? You're moving on to your new house. Now you have to pack everything from your first house and then in the containers, and then you have to move to your new house. What you will be making sure that when you're moving to a new place, each and every thing that you're packing, it should take less space, right? That you can fit everything in just one truck and then you can go. And then you will not be loading all the items in 3 to 4 trucks, right? You will be making sure that it should take as much less space as possible. In our programming language, we have different type of containers, or you can say data structures. A structure where we store the data. Now, based on what kind of data that you want to store, that it can just fit and it can take minimum, space possible. Let's say we want to store only a name of a student, right? What we will be doing will be creating a variable. Now, variable is just a single memory block which can only contain a single value, like a name of a student. Now, if you want to store, let's say, names of all the students, like of the entire class, that is not possible to store in a single variable. What we will be doing, we will be creating the array for that. Now, what is array? Array is a chain of memory blocks. That is another data structure where we can keep the data. Now, another is let's say we want to store all the information about the student. Let's say student, name or maybe email address, home address, phone number, right? All these things. Then in that case, the best data structure that we will use to store this kind of data is the object, or you can say JSON. JSON is basically a format which is used to store the data in the object. Let me show you if possible. Here, you can see in that we have one. Let's say if you want to store something, a single value, let's say a Rahul, then I will be using one variable. But if I want to store multiple information about someone, like name, roll number, hope, his address, then we would be creating one object. This is what the object looks like. Now the format that we are using, this format is called a JSON format. This is the JSON format in which we'll be creating the object and we'll be storing the data. Right? Let's say if you want to create a single, if you want to store a single value, let's say only a name, right? Then you will not be creating the entire object, right? It will be a waste of memory. Similarly, if you want to store all these things, it can be done through variable as well. Let's say I will have to create a separate variable for name. I'll have to create a separate variable for roll number. I'll have to create, a separate variable for all these things. That will take much of a space and it will be a mess and will not be able to have a linking between these variables. Based on what kind of data that you want to store in your program, in your application, that it takes less space and the size of the application will be less and it will run smoothly on any platform or in any system, right? We have to have the data structures in our program. JSON is basically a format that we are using to store the data in the object. Now, AMPscript does not support JSON. We have not seen JSON, right? It doesn't support any SJS. We will see JSON as it supports JSON. Now, in AMPscript user, different functions are not allowed. Whatever the function that we have seen, it is the pre-built functions, right? The Salesforce has already built their functions like, lookup rows, lookup function, insert data function, right? All these functions are pre-built. Now in SSJS, we have the flexibility to create our own function. Let's say I want to create my function to add two numbers. I can do that. If I want to create a function which will basically display something, I can do that, right? In SJS, we can create our own function. In AMPscript, arrays are not supported. We have seen arrays. Arrays are basically the chain of memory blocks that will be used to store the similar type of function. Let's say if you want to store the marks or the name of all the students, then we can use array, which is the data structure to store this kind of data. Now in AMPscript, arrays are also not supported in SSJS. Arrays are supported. In AMPscript, we have seen the exception handling that raise array function. Raise function is basically used to handle the exception. Generally, we think that 99% of the time the things will be fine. The data will be fine. But let's say 1%, there's a chance that the exception might occur. let's say maybe the data is incorrect or maybe data is corrupt or something like that. In that case, how we can handle this exception? We have seen the raise array functions in which we can prevent the email from going out, by blocking the email, right? That is a way to handle the exception. That is, that is not a very advanced exception handling because we are basically preventing the email, right? We can't. Now we in SSJS, we have the advanced exception handling mechanism like try and catch block. That's something we will see that how we can handle the exception in more advanced way in case of SSJs. These are the few differences between the AMPscript and SSJs. Apart from that, like an interview, if you give these differences, that would be more than enough. JSON, like while creating the objects, is not another programmer language that you will be writing. It teaches the format that this format is 11 format is like key colon value. If you see that we have something, sorry, this to this, we have this, key and then colon and then value. Write this format. Here, what we are doing, this is my, let's say, this is called the property name, and then we have the property value, property name and property value, right? This is structure or this format is called JSON. No, the whole I'm asking like a very light in a email studio cloud page. Like landing cloud page, cloud page, cloud page. Let's go and then let's write the basic function of the SAS. What we would be doing is let me copy this code. In AMPscript, what we were doing, we had the delimiter site. Now where delimiter are used, that we can keep our code separate, right? And we can tell the system that this is the line of code that have to be executed, has to be executed in a specific manner, right? If it is the AMPscript code, then it has to be treated as AMPscript only. For that, we have the delimiter. Similarly, let's say here we can in the cloud page, we can write HTML, right? We can write chess, we can write, ordinary JavaScript. We can write AMPscript, right? How do we differentiate the SAGS code from any other language, from any other code, right? We have to tell the system in some way. What we'll be using will be again using delimiter. Line number 1 is delimiter. This is your code, the opening tag, and this is your closing tag. Right now, your opening tag would be script, and then you will have to use one property, or you can say the attribute that is called run add. Run add basically tells the system that where it is going to be executed. We are running this on the server. That is why the name is server-side JavaScript, because whatever the code that you would be writing, it will be executed on the server. Now, if you're familiar a little bit about the JavaScript, and JavaScript is a language which runs on the browser. Browser means client side and server means, server side. Now, that is why we have to mention explicitly that we are running it on the server. Otherwise, what will happen? Because here we can write the normal JavaScript as well, right, which runs on our browser. Now, if we will do not mention this, then system will think that you are trying to run this on your browser, which means client side. That is why we have to mention this. And here we can write our SAS code. Let me delete this. And now, initially, when we were talking about this thing, that any programming language is nothing but a collection of functions. And what Salesforce did that. They basically took the JavaScript as a programming language and they added some of the functions and then they called it as a SES, the function that they added to this JavaScript. They added in two different libraries. We have seen a school library. Right in the school library, what we have books. Similarly, in programming language libraries, we have functions. We have two libraries, core library and platform library. We have clubbed the similar functions into the core library and the similar kind of functions into different library, that is platform. Now let's understand what these libraries are. In core library, you will find such functions which has the capability to interact with the SEM objects. Now, for now, you can just, keep this thing in mind that SEM objects, like anything that you see in Marketing Cloud, you can treat that as an object like data extension, subscriber triggers and definition list, right? Account user, anything can be used as an object. Now, with this function, we have the ability to interact with them. Right another plat. On the other hand, we have the platform library. In the platform library, more than 90% of the functions are similar to AMPscript only. I mean, these are AMPscript functions only, but there are some other functions as well in the platform library that we will be talking about in detail. For now, you just have to keep in mind only one thing, that we have two types of library, platform library and the core library. SSJS core library has the functions which has the capability to interact with some SEMkey objects, whereas the platform library has the functions which are similar to the amplitude functions, but some other functions for the data manipulation, data formatting and things like that. But this function does not have the capability to deal or interact with the SFM objects. Our proxy object will understand later. But in terms of library, we have only two libraries. Now, the thing is that this one function that is called write function. Now you have seen output function in the AMPscript. Now what the output function does is, the output function helps us to display something on the email message. Now, let's say if you want to display something on the web page, on the cloud page, we will use the write function. But in the AMPscript, we could have directly. I mean, we were directly writing the output function. Right? We did not have any problem. But here we cannot write this function. Then what we need to do? We need to load the core library. We need to load the core library first. Because core library contains the write function. Now, how do we load the library? In order to load the library, we have to use this platform.load and then we have to pass two arguments like we are loading which library, core library, and then comma 1. 1 is basically the version which we are loading right now. The interesting thing is that load is a function. Now this function belongs to the platform library, right? Now, if you carefully notice, you must be realizing one thing, that the platform library, like if you want to use any function which belongs to platform library, it doesn't require any. It doesn't require the library to be loaded first, right? If you want to use the load function, which belongs to platform library, we have to use the prefix as platform.load, and then we can use the function. But in order to use any function which belongs to core library, we have to load the core library first. Let me copy this line. This might be a little bit confusing, but it is very simple. Let me paste it over here. What we have done is that we have written this platform.load cover, which means we are loading which library, core library. Because we want to use the write function, because write function belongs to the core library. And we also have realized one more thing, that the load library, like load, is another function which belongs to the platform library. But since it belongs to platform library, it doesn't have to be loaded if we have to use the platform as suffix. Sorry, we have to use the platform as prefix to use any of the platform library function. Now write function will take some parameter, take some argument. What needs to be displayed on the web page, we can write this is SAS6. That's fine, and we can just publish. In the preview, we will be able to see the output. Here we can see the output in the preview. Now one more thing. The function names in the SAS6 are case sensitive. What does it mean? That if I'm writing like this, like write, function should be or the first letter of the function should be capital and the rest should be small. Let's say if I'll write like this to you now, the system will not be able to understand that what you are trying to say and it will throw the error. Let me show you in AMPscript. There is no restriction like that and you can use. You can write the function in any case. It doesn't matter, right? But here the function names are case sensitive. Make sure that whenever you're writing any function name, the first letter should be always capital and the rest should be small. Then only the function will work. Please do like, share, and subscribe to our channel. For more information, contact us sales@therightuptalk.com.